What's up guys, KalipezTech here, coming at you with a review of the Samsung Galaxy A52. This phone is the direct successor of the Samsung Galaxy A51, which I found to be a really good phone. So we're going to see what's all new with this phone and go over some of the best features it has and the value it provides. Let's get started. So this phone has a 6.5-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 407, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 84.6%. We got a hole punch up here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 32 megapixels, so definitely a high-quality camera. Now this display is actually really similar to its predecessor, the Samsung Galaxy A51. It still has the Super AMOLED display, still has a 1080p resolution. Overall, I think it looks really good. Thanks to the Super AMOLED display, the colors are really bright and really powerful. And for stuff like content consumption, it's gonna be really nice, whether you're just viewing photos or watching videos or playing a game. And when it comes to things like videos and playing games and that sort of thing, the 90Hz display is really gonna make a difference. Having a 90Hz refresh rate as opposed to the 60 Hz that a lot of other phones have means the movement on this phone's display is going to be a lot smoother, a lot faster, and generally just easier on the eyes, especially when you're seeing a lot of it in a video or a video game, something like that. It's really going to make a difference. Just to give you an idea of the difference between a 90Hz display and a 60 Hz display, I'm going to show you a little comparison between the A52 and this iPhone XS Max that has a 60 Hz refresh rate. As you can see here, the scrolling is definitely not bad, but compared to the Samsung Galaxy A52, the scrolling is a lot faster and smoother on this phone than it is on this phone. Now moving on to the storage, this phone has 128 gigabytes of internal storage with micro SD card expansion. So that is definitely a real lot. You're going to be able to do pretty much anything you need to as far as storage goes, whether you have lots of photos and videos, or if you have a lot of apps or a lot of games or something like that that takes a lot of data, it's really gonna be fine on this phone. You'd have to have a ton of big games or a lot of videos, especially 4K videos, to really take up all the space on this phone. And even if you have a lot of videos, you can put those on a micro SD card just fine. So I really don't see the average user running out of space very easily on this device. As far as security goes, this phone has both face unlock and a fingerprint scanner. It's nice to have the choice between both of them because a fingerprint scanner sometimes works better than face unlock and vice versa, depending on your situation. For me, whatever I can do to avoid having to use a PIN is always great. So I think it's good to have two options. And I really like the look of this fingerprint scanner. It gives a nice modern touch having it in the display. And of course, it's really fast. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So really no problems with this. It reads your finger really easily. I know some in-display fingerprint scanners are a little questionable on the more mid to lower end phones, especially. This phone is a step up from the average mid-level phone, I would say. So it is better for sure. Overall, I'm really impressed with it. There's not a whole lot to say about a fingerprint scanner, but with this nice modern look of the phone already, the high quality display, bright colors, thin bezels, and all of that, having an in-display fingerprint scanner instead of maybe on the power button or on the back right here where a lot of them still are, having it in the display just gives it that modern touch that makes the phone feel even nicer. Taking a look at this back camera setup, we got a 64 megapixel rear camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So this phone, as far as features on the camera goes, has pretty much everything except a telephoto lens, which most phones in this class don't have anyway. If you are interested in that feature, the Samsung Galaxy A52, a phone that's actually just a little step up from this phone, does have a telephoto lens. I will be covering that phone in the future, so if you're interested in hearing more about that, definitely stay tuned because I will be going into more detail about that phone as well. But as far as the camera features on the Samsung Galaxy A52 go, this phone has pretty much every basic feature you would need. And not only that, but these pictures are honestly amazing. So this is a photo taken with the rear camera of this phone. The quality is so good, the image is really sharp, the details are super vivid, you can see the shadows and everything. The lighting in general isn't too bright, which is my one complaint I had about the photos taken by the Samsung Galaxy A51, is that sometimes in certain lighting, the picture was just a little bit too bright. But with the Samsung Galaxy A52, this photo is definitely balanced perfectly. And not only that, but the colors are super impressive. There's really nothing wrong I can see with this picture, whether you're taking a bunch of portrait pictures or if you're trying to get some scenery like this photo, you're not gonna go wrong with this phone because this rear camera is amazing. This is a picture taken with a front-facing camera. Normally, I would expect a front-facing camera to be significantly lower quality than the rear camera, but I was surprised because this front-facing camera actually works really well. And again, compared to the older model, the Samsung Galaxy A51, this lighting is handled really good. When I use the Samsung Galaxy A51 to get a picture with the front-facing camera, I can't get these kinds of shadows. Usually, everything just looks super bright. Even though the quality is still pretty decent on the A51, the A52 really does take it up a notch. I definitely think Samsung stepped up their game with this phone's camera because this is really impressive. I didn't even use portrait mode for this picture and the background is still a little bit blurred, and overall it looks super professional. A lot of people use phones like iPhones and Samsung Galaxy S21s and all those flagship phones for photography, but I honestly think you could use this phone for photography and be completely fine, whether you're doing it for fun or doing professional pictures of some sort for some sort of social media site or a website or something like that. No matter what your situation is, you're not gonna go wrong with this phone's camera. Now, this is a picture taken with the ultra-wide camera, and again, I am really impressed. Most ultra-wide cameras have at least a little bit of distortion, but this one came out just as clear as the rear camera. Nothing is warped and everything has the same type of quality and colors that you would get from the rear camera, so that's good too. So we're just doing a quick video sample. We are shooting in 4K at 30 frames per second. Also keep in mind the audio quality. And as you can see there, the video quality of this phone is really impressive as well. I did expect that going in because I shoot most of the videos for this channel with the Samsung Galaxy A51. So logically, the newer model of this phone should be able to shoot videos even better. I really do like that you can shoot videos in 4K with this phone. It is becoming a more and more common feature, even on mid-level phones, but most of them really don't do it as well. And combined with the big storage on this phone, it's really impressive. Now, this picture was taken by the macro camera of this phone. I don't really use macro cameras very often, and I don't really hear of them being used very often, but at the same time, it is a really high quality picture. So if you do like to use macro cameras in whatever you're doing, then this is a good thing too. Now, internally, this phone is getting 6 GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone and it came back with a single core score of 538 and a multi-core score of 1559. So definitely good numbers. To be perfectly honest, I was kind of expecting a little more. This processor isn't bad by any means, but I'm not altogether very impressed with it either. I was expecting it to be somewhere in the 1700s. It is a noticeable jump up from the A51 that had a multi-core score somewhere in the 1200s, but at the same time, it's not really so much of a jump up that it really changes the phone's capabilities all that much. If anything, it's really just gonna make it run what it could already do before, a little bit better, a little bit faster. So the same kind of thing applies to this phone as it did to the Samsung Galaxy A51. If you're using the phone for more moderate activities, any of your basic things like web browsing, social media, and all that stuff is gonna be perfectly fine. And then if you're doing photo and video editing and playing games on the phone, it should be fine for most situations. But if your video editing involves really big files, or if the game you're playing has super complicated graphics, that's where you're probably gonna run into a little bit of a problem. It's probably gonna be able to do that kind of stuff, but it's not gonna be able to do it as fast as, say, a flagship phone like the Samsung Galaxy S21. Now, this phone has a 4500 milliamp hour battery. The This supports 25-watt fast charging, so this battery is really good. It's not quite a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so that is the only little drawback, but it's close enough to the point where compared to pretty much any other phone, this phone's gonna have a much bigger battery. Definitely compared to something like the iPhone 12 with a 2,815 milliamp hour battery, this battery is so much bigger. It's almost double that size for that matter. So this phone is gonna last really long. So there are really two situations where this is gonna really benefit you a lot. If you're on the go a lot and don't always get the chance to plug in your phone, or if you just don't like to have to plug in your phone, then this is gonna be real good because you can use your phone throughout the day and easily have the phone last plenty of time until you can actually plug it in at night or whatever. And then the other thing, if you prefer to not have to buy phones very often, if you like to get one phone and keep it for years, this is gonna be good too because all batteries degrade, but this battery being so large is gonna degrade a lot slower than some of the other phones out there. So at the time the other phones are starting to wear out to the point where you need a new one, this one's probably still gonna have a good amount of life in it. So let's talk a little bit about this phone's features. Unfortunately, there's no wireless charging, which is a bit of a disappointment to me because with everything else that's been added to the A52 since the A51, I would think that they'd start to add something like wireless charging too. I've only seen a couple mid-level phones, or just non-flagship phones for that matter, that even have wireless charging, but it would be nice for this one to be one of the first. Maybe next time, but unfortunately not in this phone. But on the other hand, this phone does have NFC, so you can use Google and Samsung Pay if you want. And it does have dust and water resistance, which I was really excited to find out about because I've seen very few, if any, phones that aren't flagship phones that have that. This phone has water resistance for up to 1 meter at 30 minutes, so it's not bad at all. If you're in an environment where there's lots of dust or water, this is good to keep in mind because this is going to give you a lot of extra durability, and with how nice this phone is, you definitely don't want it getting messed up, so this is a nice addition. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's take a quick look at the hardware. I already pointed out the front-facing camera right here. It looks real nice. Up top here we got the tray for the SIM card, and then the noise-canceling microphone. On the bottom there's a 3.5mm headphone jack. I'm glad that this phone still has that because the flagship phones from Samsung don't. Everyone's doing away with headphone jacks, so that's another thing to keep in mind if you don't like to use the wireless ones. Then we got the microphone, of course, USB-C charging port, and the speaker. There's nothing on the left side of the phone, but on the right side we have the volume up and volume down button and the power key, and then our camera setup and flash on the back. There's a Samsung logo down here that honestly you can barely see. It really blends in, but it does look nice. The back is made of a matte plastic material, and overall the phone definitely doesn't feel cheap. I would have preferred if they added a better material on the sides, maybe some metal, to make it feel more premium. But as far as performance goes, it really has a lot of high-end features and good quality. Everything else, it's just the materials that I'm not a huge fan of, just because I don't really like that plasticky feel that this phone definitely has, especially since the sides actually kind of look like the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE, which is a flagship phone and does have those nicer materials on it. So it would have been nice if they kept that same design on this phone and just made it consistent. Now, in conclusion, for my final thoughts about this phone, it is definitely a huge upgrade from the Samsung Galaxy A51, which was already, in my opinion, a really great phone to begin with. It's got a lot of nice features that you don't typically see on mid-level phones, like the dust and water resistance. That was real nice. The 90Hz display is a nice addition. I wasn't actually expecting that, especially since even flagship phones like the iPhone, for example, only have a 60Hz refresh rate. 90Hz refresh rates are a little bit more of a specialized thing, and the storage is good too. I think the best feature about this phone, in my opinion, is the camera. I'm more impressed by the camera of this phone than pretty much any other feature on it. They've really stepped up the game since the Samsung Galaxy A51, which again, I really like the A51. I use it all the time myself, but this camera is clearly better, which is saying a lot. And I think it can even compete with the cameras of some of the flagship phones out there. One thing that I don't particularly care for about this phone is the processor. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just pretty mid. I don't think you're gonna notice a huge difference in performance between this phone and say the Samsung Galaxy A51, but I would recommend downloading Geekbench 5 for yourself and running the test on your own device and comparing it to the scores of this and seeing if it's an upgrade, because there are for sure a lot of phones out there that are a lot weaker than the Samsung Galaxy A52. So there are plenty of situations where you're probably going to experience a lot better performance with this phone. But overall, I really do like this phone. I am a big fan. In case you're wondering, it does come in several different colors like awesome black, awesome white, awesome blue, and awesome violet. I like how they had to put awesome in front of the names of the colors. That's kind of funny. But overall, if you're looking for a phone with a real good display, an amazing camera, a good battery, and decent performance without the price of a flagship phone, then this phone's definitely a solid option. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found this information helpful. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want to see info on pricing and availability, be sure to check the link in the description because this stuff is always changing. But that's it for today, guys. I'll see you in the next video.